All right. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited. Today we have the one and the only Kelly O'Connor visiting with us. Kelly, thank you so much for hopping on and being a part of the True North 365 podcast and also with the Facebook community and our YouTube community to share about what you do, why you do it, and how you got here. So welcome and tell us a little bit. Give us some information about you. Who are you and why did you decide to hop on today?
Well, thank you so much for having me on here. I've loved following your journey and following your podcast and everything that you're doing. So congratulations on that. And thank you so much for having me on. I've been looking forward to being here and sharing with you a little bit about my story. I am an elder care consultant, and I help people whether they're trying to stay at home safely and find good resources and the right care team and support teams and strategies to do that well. We help them do that. We're working here in Denver. I'm based in Denver, and we also help families around the country. And then we also do senior living placement. So when home is no longer safe and they need to transition to a senior living community, we are helping them do that by finding the right one that will match, one, their location and budget, but also to match their care needs and also their social, psychological needs, which now, we've been talking about the mental health of seniors more and more with the isolation. So never before has it become more important for a senior living placement agent who does this to be able to support families.
Totally agree. And we met. I was in senior care for about 4 or 5 years, and I use you and I didn't really we didn't have a very close relationship at the time. It was right in the beginning of my senior care time when I worked in assisted living, and my grandma fell in her home, and then she went into the hospital, and then she got transferred into a rehab, and from there they basically said, well, you need to find somewhere for her to go. And even with the experience I had working in the senior living community as a sales associate, I still, when it's your own family, you have no idea what to do. And you're like, where are we going? How do we know what's really going on behind closed doors? And especially now during COVID, we really can't see what's going on behind closed doors. I mean, sure, you can get a report about, what their numbers are, but I'm sure, and I want you to, obviously you know a lot more about this right now than I do, because I've been out of the industry for a couple of years, but we used a senior placement person. And again, at the time, I didn't know you as well. So otherwise, I mean, even now I'm like, okay, as soon as we need another person, we are Kelly. Like, that is the one to use. You are Senior Care Kelly, and you have all of the knowledge and the resources for people to use. So quick introduction from my side and from what I know about you. So you haven't always been in senior care. You had a really big career in the fashion industry, and you traveled back and forth between New York and Los Angeles, and you helped build $1 billion brand. And that is just so cool. And obviously people looking at you will be able to tell, oh, I can totally tell she was in fashion and modeling, because you're beautiful and you're always wearing these fashionable clothes.
Okay, you're embarrassing me.
Yes, 2 minutes in and I've done my job. Perfect. But today you're an award-winning elder care consultant and founder of Senior Care Kelly. And you are on a mission, on a nationwide crusade to disrupt and dispel myths and prejudices against aging and elderhood in America. And you have supported hundreds of elders and their families over the years. And you stand firm that as a country, we have an opportunity to celebrate our elders in a bigger and bolder way. So those are very different expertise, if you will, very two different careers. So in the second portion of the show, I do want to get into like where you started and what got you into senior care. And maybe we could jump into that just a little bit right now. So why do you do senior care? Why do you help people find homes? What are all the different services that you use, and what got you started on all of this?
It was one of those, I went through my midlife crisis when I was 45 years old, and I was just at a loss in life. I'd been laid off for my second time, And it was 2010, and I was just confused in life. I was like, wait a minute, how did I have this big career before and now I can't get a job and I can't keep a job? What do I do? And so I decided that I was going to do all the things that I ever wanted to do. And one of those was I wanted to volunteer for hospice. So I went through a very extensive training program with a hospice agency, and I'd also always wanted to work at the Container Store. So I went and I worked at the Container Store in Cherry Creek here in Denver and loved it so much. And so I was really just sort of putting my life back together, really, of the things that I wanted to do in life. And along the way, my mom passed away in my 20s, and I took care of her for 4.5 years. And at the time, we had 2 grandmothers who lived with us, and they were, I had to help them move to senior living and take care of my mom. And then my mom passed away, and then her mom passed away. And at that time, that's when I jumped into the fashion business. But I had just seen that period of time as like a bad part of life. Like it was a blip on the radar. That really sucked. Like, let's move on. And now I'm going to go. And I had been in Los Angeles before. And so I was going to move back to LA. And now I'm finally going to be able to jump into my career. And so I did it, and I jumped in a big way. And I was able to achieve, some really great things. But I had this moment where it was like, I wanted to do something different. I wanted to contribute to the world in a more meaningful way. Fashion is fun, and I still love fashion, but my contribution and how I wanted to contribute to the world. And so I moved here to Colorado and, started working at the Container Store and volunteering for hospice. And there was a gal that called me one day, and she just said, you should be in senior living. And I said, senior living, what's that? But I'd had all this experience, but I had completely put it out of my mind. And so I ended up not getting the job she was calling me about, but I asked her if she would be my mentor. And she really mentored me through the process where I found my first job in senior living, and I was making $12.50 an hour, and I worked my way up to $19.50 an hour. But I was determined that that sacrifice was worth it to learn the industry from the inside out. And I started my own agency in 2015, and it has just taken off in ways that I never could have even imagined for myself. And I love helping families every day. It is what calls me up in the morning. It's what wakes me up. It makes me shake off a bad day. It's because there are families in crisis that I have the skill set and the expertise to be able to help. And therefore, my life is that contribution that I wanted it to be in helping families during their most difficult time.
So tell me, absolutely. So tell me, can you share with us what are some crises that families would go through?
Oh my gosh. The biggest one is mom fell and broke a hip and she can't go home. That's it. And people panic. And I get it. It's a huge crisis. And falls are the number one injury related death for people 65 years and older. So falls are so serious. So I'm always like, get those throw rugs and get them out of the house and clear out some of the furniture so that, you're lessening the trip hazards. And but that's really the biggest one, is that there's been some sort of crisis. Mom falls, breaks a hip, goes to the hospital, then goes to rehab. And then in rehab, it becomes clear that she's not safe to go home. So then what do we do? And I love it when families call me. I'm like, call 911 and then call me, and I'll meet you at the hospital. During COVID, we haven't been able to do as much of that, but I'll meet you there. I'll be there for you. I'll help you, walk you, and help you find the right rehab. And then we'll figure out what's next, whether it is going home or finding the right senior living place for them to be.
Absolutely. Yep. And that's such a hard thing to go through as a family member. And just like, it's so funny because that's what I was sharing with you, like grandma broke a hip and then we didn't know what to do, and even being in it. So it was, it was a lot. So if that does happen, or like you talked about getting all the throw rugs and then throwing them out. So what's some other tips that people can walk away with from listening to this of how to avoid that kind of end all be all hospital visit?
Yeah. I think it's really just paying attention.
Mm.
And, it's interesting. I just went through shoulder surgery. And so I had to have a home care agency come in and help me. And I had people bringing me meals. I haven't been able to drive in almost 6 weeks. And so anywhere I need to go, I'm taking a lift and going somewhere. I'm really experiencing what it's like to be dependent on other people and on services. And we don't really realize that. And when we're looking at our parents, hopefully, those of us that still have our parents, I unfortunately don't. But we look at them as our elders and we want to respect them. And we always see them for who they are in our lives instead of seeing who they are in their lives. And I think that's a really big shift for people to be able to really recognize, at 80 years old, the life expectancy is, right about 79 years. So if you're at 80 years, you're in borrowed time. Like you're on that extra level. So let's have a conversation about what elder life looks like, what their intentions are, and to really start to put together some of those pieces legally, financially, logistically, in addition to working on the home environment itself.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Those are all really, really, really good pieces of advice. And so if somebody wanted to consult with you, but they're not quite ready to move because you're Senior Care Kelly and you do help people transition into senior care homes. But is that something that they're able to hire you for to walk through, like how to prepare, and maybe like do you help with power of attorneys or living wills or anything along those lines for people who kind of do understand that this is going to happen and they do need to be prepared and they want to work with someone like that? Is that something that you're able to do?
Yes. Yeah. Thanks for asking about that. This year, we piloted a program called Power of Attorney Readiness. It's actually a class where people who know that they will hold power of attorney for a loved one can actually come to a class and get educated on what does that mean and what decisions will you be called to make. Because it's, everyone thinks that a medical power of attorney is, am I going to pull the plug or not pull the plug? Like they reduce all of that. There is so much that is entailed in what a medical power of attorney may be called to do. And are they prepared to do that? And what happens is we have some sort of elder care crisis. There's some sort of crisis that's in the middle of our already busy lives. When do we carve out the time to get educated in the middle of a crisis? And when the hospital is telling you your mom has to be discharged today, and the rehab is saying you have 72 hours to find her a new place to live. I mean, this is what happens. So when do you get educated? When do you get up to speed? And so we're really encouraging anyone that's 3 to 5 years in advance of when they think they'll be called to serve as power of attorney to get engaged with us, just to take a class, invest in yourself, invest in your family. We've never had one person say that it was a complete waste of time.
Yeah.
They've always picked up something where they know that they'll be more empowered and they'll have great resources at their fingertips when that time comes.
Mm-hmm. And how did you come up with this idea?
It really, it's interesting because I didn't initially start in senior care. So I didn't come up in the senior care world. I'm really a business person, from outside that looked in. So that's what I saw, is that in looking in, people are not prepared. So it's like, okay, how do you get people prepared? And we've been trying to encourage people to get prepared ahead. But what is the day? It's like, oh, I could take a yoga class or I could take a painting class. Why would I take a power of attorney readiness class? Like that's been the one thing we've had the hardest obstacle for. And it's only in retrospect that someone will look back and say, I wish I would have taken that class with Kelly. I wish I knew who to call. I wish I was more prepared for this. But again, we don't live in that kind of society that we get educated on things that we really don't want to look at, because we don't want to talk about our parents aging. We don't want to talk about our parents eventually dying, or we don't want to talk about what's going to be required of us to make decisions and have to move forward.
Mm-hmm. And why do you, now you say because it's easier to do other things and in the moment and we're busy and stopping to take a look at these hard things are not desirable. So it's almost like, do you find that, are there more people who are reacting to situations that are happening instead of preparing?
Yes. So I don't have the current statistics with me right now, but it's less than half of people 18 years and older that have a power of attorney document drafted. And so that means in a crisis, there is no one legally authorized to make decisions on my behalf. And everyone 18 years and older should have that. And so, especially when you look at people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s that still don't have those documents drafted, what the elders will say is, oh, yes, she's my power of attorney. What the elder really means is she's my next of kin and she's the person that I want to make my decisions. But they haven't gone and gotten a document that actually signs, that legally says this is the person to make those decisions. So without that, especially where dementia is concerned, and sometimes with stroke and things that would really incapacitate someone, many times you're having to go for guardianship and conservatorship. And when you get to that level, it is very expensive because you have to petition the court. And then whoever serves as power of attorney is now, serves as guardian, they are now accountable to the court for everything that they do. So their job just got more complicated where they're having to prepare reports and submit them to the court for approval. And so it's really a tough situation. And I hate to see families in that when they could simply either get one of the templated forms that's on online. The Colorado has a templated form that you can use that you can quickly fill out and get notarized, or you can go to an attorney to have a full estate plan done. But people just really don't understand what it's like to be on our side, to see the lack of preparation and the chaos that it causes for families.
Oh yeah. Do you find that that it can cause drama between siblings and other family members?
It's so bad. It is so bad. And I do something, I have another program that's called a facilitated family conversation. So people used to call me all the time and they're like, I need an intervention. My sister's doing this for my mom, or my mom won't look at this and everything. And I said, hey, we're all adults here. I don't do interventions on adults, right? But I will facilitate a family conversation and I will be honest with you about what needs to be in place. I will be honest with you about the consequences if those things are not in place. And I can also help the family have these really difficult conversations where one family member doesn't want to talk about something and another one. And, you know, it's interesting. We look at sort of the personalities in a family, and I'm like, and I always joke and I said, okay, who's the good guy? Like, who's the hero in mom's eyes? Or who is the bad guy in the family? Or who is the one that always jumps in and throws the bomb in the middle of the family situation and just blows things up? Like, you know, and we talk about that as a family, and everyone sort of laughs and giggles about themselves because we're not in crisis usually when we're having these conversations. But it's a way just to all get on the same page. And so if a crisis happens, people are also familiar with me. And so when a crisis happens, I'm not having to introduce myself, and I'm not having to get up to speed on who the elder is and what the elder's wishes were, because I already know that. And it just makes that transition process so much easier. If only families would do that more, I would love it. It would make it so much easier for them and so much easier for their parents.
Well, yeah. And the parents could make it so much easier by initiating that conversation, right? But because they're getting older and then they're avoiding, you know, well, everything, well, you guys will just figure it out. It's like, no, we won't. I know it seems like we all get along, but when you start including the estate and the any money that's left over, like that is like a big, it can cause really big problems in families. I mean, even if it's just, I had a friend of mine the other day, and their brother-in-law passed away, and there were some lamps right in the house. And I guess one of the sisters called dibs on the lamp. But someone else decided to take them to like the storage unit and said they'll be there. And then they weren't there. And it was like this crazy thing. And it was like, well, the lamps weren't really yours to begin with, is what a different sister said. And it just caused just over some lamps caused this huge drama. And you're like, no way. I mean, that just happened last week with a friend of mine. And so, yeah, it's I believe in what you're saying, and I've seen it myself, not as much as you have, but I have seen it. So it's really important that people invest their time and money into working with a professional like you to be able to, again, take it from an objective view, and you're not inside the box. You're not emotionally attached to anybody in there. So you're able to have a more direct conversation and really just talk about, hey, from my experience, this is what would be in everyone's best interest. And here's why. And again, you bring in, it sounds like you're bringing in humor. So it's not like, it has to be like this heavy conversation. You're really, I mean, gosh, you're like a mediator between people. Like, you're not just someone who finds a pretty home for people to live in that's going to help them outlast their money, or their money outlast them, because that's another thing that we'll talk about. But you're really going in and you're being a therapist and a mediator for these families, it sounds like.
And really advocating for the elder and what's going to be in the elder's best interest. And because that is most important, because I've seen families make decisions based on themselves that have negatively impacted the elder. And that is the one that's, it really just gets me. And not that they're doing it, some people may be doing it selfishly, but other people may be doing it just out of ignorance, where it just says, well, this sounds like better. This is going to be easier for me. I'm going to make this decision. And it's like, let's look at the impact. And so I just had a family do this exact same thing, and their father is experiencing the consequences of their decision, but they were making decisions that they were using criteria that weren't really important in the whole scheme of things. And so the way they made decisions, again, not my decisions. I advocated for the elder and what I thought was best for them. I never make decisions for a family. The family always makes their own decisions. And I'm very clear about that. But in this situation, the family didn't make necessarily the right decision or best decision. And they're like, yeah, you told us that this was going to be the consequence. And I'm like, yeah, and it's okay, because you had a different criteria. But now moving forward, what's going to be important for you. So we just work through it together, and we work through it together over time. And that's the thing. In placement, there's some people that it's more like a real estate transaction. It's finding the person the best place to live, and they move on to the next client. We actually have a commitment to our clients throughout the lifetime of the elder. So we are with them until their elder passes away. And then we have a group of clients that actually call themselves the Alumni Club. So their loved one has already passed away, but they love to come to our events and be a part of what we're doing, because we have social events, educational events. This year, we won't be able to have our annual happy hour, which I'm so upset about. And we didn't have our picnic this summer, but hopefully next year, everything will be different. But we have all of these, we're building a community, really. That's what we're doing that's different, that people can be involved and get to know each other and support each other over the caregiving journey.
And that's so important, because going through challenges in life, especially after, or your parent or your loved one, your whoever it might be, is either about to pass away, like they're within that time frame of however long it needs to be for that person to feel affected, or their loved one has already passed away. And so to have a community of people that know what that's like, it's almost like a grief support group, but also they get to share their experience with people who haven't used you yet, right? So this is kind of on the business end. And it's also from a heart space as well, that they get to share their experience with others and give them hope that, hey, we know you're going through a hard time right now. This is what we went through. Here's how we made it through. And Kelly was such a big help with that. So you are creating community. And that is just such a difference that you have compared to other people that practice your profession. And you are right. There are lots of people that treat it as a real estate transaction. They don't have to have their real estate license. There's not as many regulations. There's a fraction of the regulations that's on them as a senior care placement specialist than there is in the real estate world, because they just have to find a good place and at least be there when they're walking through the senior living community. And as long as they were there and they have a contract with that community, that's all they have to do. And they can clean their hands and walk away. And it's just, you got to be careful with who you work with in that situation, for sure. So I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. I'm glad that you wake up every day excited about, who you are and what you're doing and the impact you're making on the world with the job that you get to have. So has that feeling always, you've been doing this for 3 years, 4
Well,
years?
I've had my own agency now for 5 years.
5 years.
So I've been doing as my own person for 5 years, and we have a team of people, really some great people that are supporting me. And we're helping families around the country. So with the elder care consulting, I'm doing that with families throughout the country. And then for senior living placement, we're helping people in other parts of the country by vetting their senior living placement agent and making that introduction and connection so that they're well cared for in their local market. And so they're still a part of our group, but we're working with affiliates in other areas. And it's just been wonderful. I've met some amazing people. We do have in my industry, we have some really amazing people that are doing great work.
I agree. The senior care industry is a phenomenal place, and you can see who's in it for the right reasons. And I think a lot of people jump into it for the right reasons, and then politics or burnout or money can make it hard to stay. And so the people that do stay and they do it for the right reasons makes a big difference. I see Juliana Young is watching. She's one of those people that, we just love, and she's definitely in this for the right reasons as well. So you're here local in Colorado. Just for anyone listening later, or if you're catching the recording, or if you're watching it now and you're like, well, where is Kelly? Where in the world is Kelly? Where's Senior Care Kelly? Well, she's right here in your backyard if you live in Colorado, where you can actually, you can meet with her. Her contact information is right across the bottom here. And then if you're listening to the podcast, I mentioned it at the beginning, but her telephone number is 720-502-0020. And her email is kelly@seniorcarekelly.com. And she's just a wealth of information. And she's, again, worth all the investment of your time and money that you have to be able to work with someone as good as she is. So we're going to switch gears. And Juliana says, hey, ladies. Juliana says, Kelly is such an asset to our industry. So
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And, before we switch, there's one thing that I did want to mention is that senior living placement, if a family starts with us, instead of doing their own search out there online or going to different places on their own, it's actually can be free to the families. There's a program where we can qualify them to get our services for free. And so if they have any questions about how that works before you start touring communities and researching online, putting in your information, asking for more things, come to me and I'll just explain the way the program works. And if they'd like to do that, we'd love to share that information with them. Because if we can give away free services, I love being able to do that.
Oh, that's right. See, and that's how long I've been out for. I forget that the placement services are, depending on their situation, can be a free service. And it's like, wow, that's pretty amazing. Like, you have no reason not to, but just like you said, Kelly, it's so important. If you're listening and you're thinking, man, I'd really love to use Kelly and be able to see what options are for us. Contact Kelly first before going online, before calling any communities, because they can, she's going to be able to help you weed through stuff. It's just a waste of time to go online and look. And it is a waste of time to go in and see anywhere without Kelly, honestly. So call her first, and then she can help you weed through some stuff. And I do want to talk about your journey. I want to talk about some business stuff, but something else that just popped in my mind, which is what this whole thing is titled, is COVID. So what is it like right now in the senior care community? or communities with COVID going on. How are you guys navigating that? Our families, are they really cautious about moving into a place, considering what's on the news? And it's just scary. So tell us a little bit more about COVID and your life in the senior care communities right now with families.
Well, it's been up and down. It's been the most emotional time of my entire career. And it is very, very tough. And just a shout out to anyone who's in senior living, and whether those are caregivers, administrators, the culinary department, food service, housekeeping departments, maintenance. I mean, all of the different divisions, the life enrichment people that ran the activities programs and how they had to shift everything. I mean, it's been so tough. There are some communities that did a great job as far as pivoting and serving families, and others that just shut down, shut off everything. We're closing our doors, and we're doing this extreme isolation and quarantine. And then there was everyone in between. And so we've really seen some heroes come out of this. We have had obviously significant loss, from COVID. And a lot of people will say to me, oh, it must be a bad place if they've had a COVID outbreak. And that really isn't the case. Yes, there are some negligent communities where the community did not have proper precautions in place. Yes, I agree with that. But it's really the nature of the virus and how it's transmitted or not transmitted, and all the mixed messages that we've had, and all of the as research has unfolded, what we've learned along the way, we've had to adapt, week after week after week. And I just saw my computer may shut off because I'm on my laptop. I'm going to plug it in as I'm talking here. So, yeah. But anyway, we've really had to adapt. And what we're seeing is that communities now have really adapted. They've opened up quite a bit. We're having visitations and so forth. So it's really going to be interesting. So ask the next question while I go get my plug. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. There was a question that came up. So healthcare workers, activities departments, some people are, on total lockdown. Okay. So for people who are living in a senior living, for people who have family members living in a senior living community, and they are, they're extremely restrictive, and they're keeping everyone isolated. And if we want to skip to the next question, we can totally do that, because I know that it's really important for you to maintain, respect for all communities, no matter what their choice was, to completely shut down or to keep things running as normal as possible, and allow visitors to come in and out, and allow people to eat in the dining room, people to go to activities. Have you seen a difference in their quality of life being isolated, and how seniors, do you think COVID is causing more damage if they get it, or is COVID causing more damage by the environment that's being created because of the fear and the precautions?
People have different opinions about this. So there have been a lot of people from a mental health perspective that have really suffered. There's also people from a cognitive health perspective that have really suffered as well. The way I sort of think about it is, if a senior lived at home, they would be more isolated in a lot of ways, unless they were quarantining with others in their family. And they have hot meals. They do have some sort of activity and social engagement. So there are some people that think that it has been better to be in a care community. The problem, what happens is, when the virus is introduced to the community, always by accident, never on purpose, but when it is introduced to a community, it will spread quicker in a community because of because of just the physical interactions, especially in assisted living, memory care communities, and in skilled nursing, not as much in independent living. But I think really the difficulty with the virus, just in society in general, is people have very different opinions about it and very different thoughts about what it means to get it, to not get it. Some people don't even believe that it's real. And so, so what we're finding is that to really look at the organization itself and what their beliefs are, and what their philosophy is, and what their protocols are, and what their plan is for the future as we have a resurgence, if we have a resurgence with this. So I'll bring up an example. Here in Colorado, there was a community in Greeley who the residents protested. It's a nursing home. They had significant loss and significant death at that particular community. But the residents are tired of being on lockdown, so they actually staged a protest. So they had their protest signs, they're outside in their wheelchairs, and they basically said, we don't care if we get COVID, we want this to be open. And there's a part of me that admires that. There's a part of me that says, you know what? They have lived long lives and they have the right to live their life the way they want to live. I have friends, very close friends, that don't believe in social distancing. They don't believe in wearing masks. So what happens is when you're in community, how do you make this decision as an organization that needs to protect its workers, but who's also been entrusted with the care of their residents? How do you all come together with one singular policy or one singular protocol that will happen where everyone's going to be happy? That's the tough part. So I wonder, when everything was first coming down, there were some skilled nursing communities that decided, hey, we'll be a COVID skilled nursing and we'll take everyone that has COVID and we will love them and we will care for them. And so that was one way that that particular company adjusted. And they just said, we'll be COVID. So I wonder if in the future that there might be communities that say, you know what? We are a community that does not practice social distancing. We do not believe in masking. And so would they hire and recruit employees that had a similar belief system? And would they recruit residents that had a similar philosophy? I don't really know. But I just wonder what this will look like. And again, it is literally unfolding week by week by week.
And so how have you stayed, well, I know the answer to this, but I know your business is doing very well, but how do you, so there's entrepreneurs that listen to this. There's people who have a side business that listen to this. And there's people who just have all the respect for business owners or who don't care. Like we have a wide range of people on here, but the idea is that no matter what you're doing, you're following your true north every single day of the year, and you're doing what you feel that you're being called to do. So how, like when COVID came out, how did you pivot, and how are you you're having the best year of your life in business ever, and it's COVID, and you're in senior care that's being hit the hardest. So tell us all, how do we be like Senior Care Kelly? Like what is this?
Well, there's this thing that's like survivor's guilt, where I don't even want to admit that this has been a great business year. Because some people will say that's because you're taking advantage of the disadvantaged seniors or what, like, I don't even know where people would go with that. But what I did was, as soon as I realized when COVID hit the nursing home in Washington State, I realized that I needed to get educated. And so I'm a part of a national network, and we all hunker down together to talk about what might this look like when it comes to our state and what we should do. And we were closely watching Washington State and seeing what, that's hard to say, and seeing what they were doing. And so part of this is, I think business owners get really focused on their particular business instead of looking at the market and looking at trends, either outside of their local community or outside of their state. So I was gathering information from all the states as things were changing. I was on the New York State Health Department webinars that were every single week as things were happening. And that was before we had our first cases here in Colorado. And so I was just really preparing myself for this. And then personally, just from a business perspective, I had a beautiful office and I moved home. And so I've been home since March. And I really began to really center myself and say, okay, I am here to provide education for families. I am here to coach and to guide families and to provide the best information so that they can make the right decision or the best decision possible given this horrible crisis that we're all in. And so I looked down, I kept my eyes on my feet and at my computer screen, and that's all I did was just work. And I just became more and more vocal about we have to work together and you have to be informed and you have to be educated. And so how do we do this? And so really it was just a recommitment. I could have said, oh my gosh, my business is going to fold. And I could have been in drama. I don't watch television. I don't watch the news. So I've been really isolated from all of the drama that is sensationalized television and news reporting. So I haven't been privy to that, but I've kept up with everything online as far as data and information and webinars from trusted sources. Mm-hmm. And so, for me, it's been difficult. I've had to walk families through just horrible decisions that I would not have to want to make at all. But I've been able to love them and support them and really honor them in their tough decision making. And, some of them had to make unpopular decisions within their family or unpopular decisions in their community. But they know that they have someone that really supported them in finding out what their own values were and what their own decisions would be and really supported them in having the courage to do it. So it's been tragic. It's been awful. It's been exhilarating because I've had to work so much. And just help so many different families, but it's definitely been a privilege. And this is what I wanted to do when I wanted to shift my career, is I wanted to make a meaningful difference in the world. And COVID has allowed me to do that. My work before COVID, has, my work after will, but really during this time, it's like, wow, thank goodness I had every single one of those years of experience and all the hundreds of families that I've been able to help so that when COVID hit, that I was able to really strategically help these families move through the process as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we all appreciate you for what you're doing in the community and the dedication that you have to this. It's a craft and it's an art and it's a very delicate art that you're working through with helping families feel like they can trust you and that they're making the right choices of what to do with their loved one and how to do that. So for your business and who you work with, what are some of who are power partners for you, for people that are listening and thinking, how could I help Kelly meet more people? How can I, how can I introduce her to people who are going to naturally be working with others who are needing the services that you have to offer? So where are some good power partnerships for you that you're able to utilize to help families and to be introduced to more families that need what you have to offer?
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, for asking that. I work with a lot of elder law attorneys and a lot of financial advisors. Those are the people that I work with most. I would love, my dream is to actually work with a big corporation. And I just haven't gone into that direction. But because I looked at the statistics of caregiving in the workplace. There was a Harvard Business Review article that just came out, and people are afraid in their work environment to share with their coworkers and their bosses that they have stepped into a caregiving role or that there's a family crisis, because they're afraid that they're going to be looked over for promotions. They're afraid that there will be scrutinized, that their work will be looked at a little bit more closely, or that if there's a mistake that's made, we all make mistakes in our daily work, and that there's a mistake that's made, that it would be sort of catastrophized because, well, she's taking care of her mother and all the things. And so there's this in the workplace, I would love that. That's sort of my dream, is to be able to have a corporation that really understood that caregiving is the role of the future, because people are living longer. So there are more of us that will be thrust into that caregiving role. And so how can we support people? The term is actually called presenteeism. So I'm not absent from my work, but am I sitting at my desk and for 4 hours of my 8-hour workday, am I researching senior living? Am I calling and making doctor's appointments? I'm not present in my workplace. I'm physically there, so I'm not absent and I'm not using PTO, but I'm here. So how can businesses, corporations support their caregivers in using their lunchtime well, using their PTO well, using their FMLA well? It would be bringing someone like me and the affiliates that I have around the country into those offices to really support people. And even in HR, some people don't trust their HR person or their EEAP person or EAP person. And so, but to have an outside resource that was there for them, that's really my dream. And when I look at 2021, that's something that I'd love to see.
Oh, good. So big corporations, how many employees would you say? What's a big corporation to you?
Well, in the corporate world, that would be in the thousands. But if there's a company that has, even 100 employees or 500 employees, something like that, where I could really have a dedicated agent that was there and a rep that would be able to be there to support them, that would really be ideal. So if they knew that Mondays was the day that anyone with a caregiver, concern had someone on board, and here you were with, the list of times that your elder care consultant was available, that would just be a dream. Because a lot of EAP programs will have elder care support, but it's someone in a call center that's not familiar with the local market that is giving you advice on the local industry. And it's like, that's not relevant to what you need. What you need is to know certain things that affect you locally. And so to have a local dedicated agent in the corporate office, I think would be ideal. So that's one of my dreams.
I love it. Well, we will work on that together for 2021. And get you into more spaces that are going to help you. Because imagine how many lives you can impact through that. It's like such an amazing, what's the word I want to look for here? Like avenue or gateway, funnel. Like it's just a great way to help find more people that you can assist. And, we'll have to, I'm looking at the time here, and I would love to talk more about your business and how you made it. So we might have to do Senior Care Kelly Part 2, just to talk about how your business started and where you are today versus where you were when you started in fashion and all the lessons that you've learned along the way. But that is definitely, I have too many questions, so it's going to take us a lot longer than 10 minutes that we have. So. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. I would say I would love to do that, because entrepreneurship has been the most challenging thing I've ever taken on. And I thought, I'm a smart person. I helped build a big business before, and I know my stuff in senior living, so I should be able to do this. But entrepreneurship nearly kicked my ass. And, and luckily right now I have a great team, and, I have a lot of amazing people supporting me. So I've reached that 5-year mark where I made it over all those humps, but you've known me throughout this time, and there've been some really tough times. And so if there's any word to any entrepreneur out there, it's really look at your business model, look at the way you're doing business, have someone from outside look at it with new eyes and see what you can do differently to streamline what you're doing to still have the same or greater impact. And you've got to have your girlfriends around. You really need those people that that have your back, because entrepreneurship can be really, really difficult. And I'm just glad I'm over that 5-year hump, because it's been tough.
Oh yeah. It is tough. I'm coming up on my 2-year mark. Actually, I've just hit my 2-year mark a few days ago.
Yay!
It's like a party, like, hello, 2 years. But yeah, and it's this questioning of, do I get a job or do I stay in business? And am I really cut out for this? And one of the things that you have said a couple of times now is, you're really equipped in the education part. So like, would you say that if someone is struggling in their business, to educate themselves on whatever it is they're trying to sell?
It is the most important piece. And it's important, one, because you deliver a bit better product for your client. Like you are able to do that. But I think the other piece as an entrepreneur too is just the self-confidence. Because, there's a piece where it's like, I know what I'm doing. And every once in a while I get stumped. And I just have resources where I go and I figure it out and I get the answers from my resources. But I know what I'm doing. And that kind of confidence does not come from, I wish I would, be this person and this sort of wishful thinking. It only comes from hard work, and it only comes through really knowing your stuff and studying your craft and studying your industry. And that takes time. And so that's the reason why I invested all of those years working in senior living before I started my own agency, because I wanted to know the industry from the inside out. I wanted to know the good, the bad, the ugly. I wanted to know how business worked and how care works, and how the two integrate together, because it is a business, it is an industry. And so how does all of that work? And I figured it out. And so that's the kind of information that I share with my clients, so they understand all of the really what they're doing and really the decision that they're making, so that they can make it with full confidence. That's what I want for them, is to know that they have done all of their research, and having people that you trust that know their stuff on your team is what really leads to that. So that's why I've always invested in education. It's the most important thing I think that an entrepreneur can do. Now, finding the time is difficult. Finding the money and the time to get the education is another thing. But to me, it's been the most important thing, because I know my stuff. And that gives me the confidence to be who I need to be for my clients, so I can be a better practitioner.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right with the time and the money and balancing everything. And so let's say somebody they're listening to this and they're like, I would love to do what Kelly does. What would be the next steps for what they want to do?
That makes me think that, because I do get people that say, I would absolutely love to do what you do. And I was wondering, I should do a class or something for like a career mentoring kind of class, if I did that once a month for people that wanted to be in this industry. And I would say you have to start where you are. I started, like I said, working in my neighborhood senior living. And I was making $12.50 an hour. Senior living isn't the highest paying industry. There are some lucrative jobs in the industry, but it's historically not very high paying. So you have to be able to be willing to tolerate that, and create a plan so that you can do that successfully. And then always there's volunteerism. That was one way, starting as a volunteer, to really get in and ask for mentorship and ask for informational interviews from people that you trust, that you think are on the right path. And you'll find that there's a lot of people that they love their industry enough where they will absolutely take the time to nurture young talent and new talent, because that is energizing for all of us that have been in the industry for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great advice. And it is great to be able to, like you said, start from the inside, see what families are going through when they are being faced with that decision to move their loved one, and how hard that is. And because I believe home care, hospice, home health, durable medical equipment companies, what they're all doing is helping people avoid moving their home-based services. And so when you know what the end result could look like, it helps tell families, I know what it's like in there, and it's not terrible. I worked in one, and there were people that loved it. I mean, they loved that their family member was in a home that they could trust that they're being taken care of. They could go to work, they could take care of their kids. I think they call it that sandwich generation, where they have their parents who are, needing a lot of assistance and they have kids that are in high school and they're trying to prep them to go off to college, or they're getting their driver's license. We know teenage years are already hard enough. So like, it's like, you know, you're either going to place your kid in a home or you're going to place your parents in a home. So like you got it. And of course we're not going to place most of us aren't going to place our kids in a home, but with your loved one. And sometimes it can really be a blessing. And sometimes it can be terrible because you made the wrong choice. And so just seeing that, I think that's really quite good. And are you still, I know for a while there, because you say you have a team. So if someone does have senior care experience and they'd like to work with you either on a local or national level, are you available to be able to have conversations around that? Or are you guys full at this time?
So we've just hired someone to come on board that I'm really excited about. She starts on Monday. So she will be the last person in our team for right now. But we're growing. And so I'm always looking for new people that want to either be in our industry or one of our related industries. I'm the one that's the master networker. If anyone's thinking that they want to change a job, I'm usually the one that they call. And so they're like, okay, what do you know about this company? And what do you know about that one? And so I'm helping lots of people behind the scenes with their job transitions. But you know, for our company, there's going to be there's going to be a lot of opportunity because it's really expanding on a national level in a way that I didn't predict. And there's going to be some really fun things that are opening up. And so I'm looking forward, you know, a lot of reasons for 2020 to be over and to start as 2021. So it's going to be interesting, but I'm always here if people want to reach out, if they're interested. You know, I'm available as much as I can be for them. Clients always take first priority, though. They're the ones. Then, you know, I just ask people from a business perspective or for a personal perspective if they would just be understanding with that I'll get back with them as soon as I possibly can.
Great. Awesome stuff. So do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave to our viewers, to our listeners, either about your entrepreneurial journey or your the business and the services that you provide, or anything else that we may have left out?
Well, I just want to say thank you, Alex, for providing this opportunity and this venue for people to be able to hear from other entrepreneurs. And the people that you've had on are always honest with their experience. And so that's what I would offer for people, is just to connect with other people that are doing what you're doing, that have similar beliefs, that are looking for their true north, that are looking for what their personal role, responsibility, their purpose, their passion is in the world, and surround yourself with them and lean into them and really take it's really a leap of faith, and to have the courage to be vulnerable with people. Because until I met other women that were like, oh my gosh, is this entrepreneurship stuff hard? You know, is this real? Like, this is difficult. It challenges you on so many different levels with your belief systems. Mm-hmm. And until I had other women that I could actually talk to, that we could have those conversations with, I thought I was the only one. I thought I was the one that was failing, that I was the one that couldn't get it together, or I was the one that was never going to figure it out or never going to be able to make it. And it was like, no, a lot of entrepreneurs feel this way. We have our ups and our downs. And so to have people that'll truly have your back during that process, that's the most important thing. And Alex, you've been one of those people that I know if I ever need a cheerleader, all I have to do is call you, and your friendship means the world to me. So thank you for being who you are and providing, you know, your friendship in this podcast for other people. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you, and thank you for acknowledging that, because that's what it's just like you said. I couldn't have said it any better. That's what this is all about, is supporting each other, coming alongside others, and being like, damn, today really sucked. And you know what? Yesterday sucked, and the day before that sucked, and the day before that sucked. And I've heard the saying, if you have more than 3 good days in business as an entrepreneur, either in your full-time hustle or your side hustle, you're lucky, because like, more than 3 days, what are you drinking? You know, or what do you want? Like, what's really happening here? Because it is so, and you're so right about challenging your belief systems. Like, and in my business, people will come in and within a month or two, they stop believing in themselves to be able to do this, or they stop believing in the business model. And it's because a lot of people that come into my business with the essential oils and hosting classes and teaching other people, it's great and exciting in the beginning, and then they realize, wow, like, this is hard, and it's easier to go to work. It's easier to press the I'm out button, and I respect it and I get it. I think there's like a very large percentage of the world that it is it's easier to do what we're doing on a daily basis than to venture out into the wild forest and find your way to the top of this mountain. And you're just at the you're at the bottom of it when you start, and starting to climb that, you got to leave behind your old beliefs and start believing that you can reach the top of this mountain and you can keep going. But if you don't believe you can do it, and everyone else around you believes you can, you won't go to the top. And if you believe you can and no one else believes you will go to the top. It's all about how you perceive your ability to do things. Because I'm sure in the last 5 years, your vision and your belief has grown exponentially because you realized, wait a minute, I can do the impossible. Mm-hmm. And I heard another thing. I was speaking at a high school last week, and we were talking about dreaming and goal setting, because some of them are about to go off to college, or they want to finish out the year strong. And we were talking about, if your dream doesn't scare you, it's just not big enough. So is your dream like, does your dream of being able to go into these thousands of employees in these companies and having all these different big corporations calling you and scheduling this, is that something that scares you? Like, is that fire in your belly to be like, oh my gosh, that would be like a lot, but I think I could do it. Like, is that how that feels for you?
It's interesting. I've had the big dreams that scared me, and I had no idea how I was going to get there. Like, no idea. I just put it out there and just said, what if this would happen? And it is happening, and it has happened. And that's the part that, from a belief standpoint, I'm not as afraid anymore. I've sort of crossed that a little bit. So know that fear does end. Mm-hmm. But it's like, okay, if this is possible and I achieved it, what else could be possible? And so now it's a little bit of a game as far as I'm concerned. It's a little bit different. But in my earlier years in entrepreneurship, absolutely, it was like setting goals. Like, how do you set goals when you're dealing with human lives? Like that, to me, I couldn't get my mind around it. But what I did, instead of setting like measurable metrics and tactics and so forth, I just set an intention, that my intention was to support X number of families this month. And I just held that intention, and I had no idea how I was going to get there. But I really had faith that it would happen. And so that was the part that was scary, was setting these intentions and then waiting for, how is this going to happen? And then just trying different things to see what was going to sort of pop as far as the strategy, or what miracle was going to plop down in the middle. And I had to be ready for it. And so, it's been interesting. But yes, I have some big dreams and some big goals that it's like, I can't even imagine that could possibly be, but what the hell? Like, why not me? Why not? And those are the kind of things that I encourage everyone, just to sit with other people that have wild ideas that we don't even know if they're possible, but get together and just support each other and see. Because I have a book that's called Kelly's Big Vision that I actually wrote 4 years ago with what I envisioned that this would be. And I haven't opened it yet. I'm going to wait till the end of the year. I just found it. And I'm going to wait till the end of the year just to see what happened. Because there's no way that I would have had a big vision 4 years ago and be where I am today and have possibly charted the path on my own. It unfolded for me, and I just said yes along the way. And I'm just grateful for that willingness to say yes and to keep stepping forward, even when it's hard, even when it's scary, even when it's difficult, even when I absolutely want to shake people and be like, come on, get with the program. I've still showed up every single day, and I'm really grateful for that. Really grateful for that.
I'm grateful for that too, because you are an inspiration to me in a big way, where you're on fire, you're doing what you want to do. And I think we had mentioned this earlier. We just met in January to talk about Senior Care Kelly and getting out there and bringing fashion and style and excitement and erasing the stigma around old, right? Like you are, and you're really doing it, and you're really experiencing a lot of success. So that shows. And I know, and like you said, we've known each other for a while. I've seen you in places that are not where you are today. And that's proof that it does work. And it's been 5 years. So it does take time. And I think we live in such an instant gratification world where we want everything in a microwave second. And it's not that way. And there's so much more I could say. And again, I want to respect your time. So maybe another time, especially after you read your, you'll have to open up that book of Kelly's Big Dream and then tell us what happened.
Okay, that would be really great. We'll have story time with Senior Care Kelly.
I love it. Yes. Again,
thank you.
Yep. All right. I'm going to end the broadcast and then we'll chat. So I'll be, hold on one second. Okay.